Sabbath sold over 8 million albums in the 70s. The first album went platinum. The second, titled Paranoid, did too. And the third, Master of Reality, reached number 8 on U.S. charts.
We were like backstreet kids, got successful. We all got the Rolls Royces, the mansions in the country, going wild, groupies in the hotel room, money to burn, first-class travel and parties every night, cocaine, booze coming out of our ears.
Ozzy was back from the brink, but his love life was still on the edge. Ozzy was estranged from his wife Thelma, with whom he now had 2 kids, Jessica and Louis. He soon fell head over heels for his constant companion, Sharon.
And I just absolutely fell in love with her.
And it's like Ozzy is a gift from God.
Not only was Randy a brilliant lead guitarist, he brought out the best in Ozzy creatively.
He gave me the time, whereas Black Sabbath would come up with the riffs and say, put a vocal line to that, or just jump in at the deep end. But Randy, being as he was a teacher, he had a lot of patience. We would bounce off each other.
He built Ozzy's confidence back up, and they became friends. And it was like the perfect relationship, perfect guy for Ozzy.
With Randy performing at his side and Sharon in his corner, now all Ozzy wanted was a record contract. But no one wanted him.
Every record company turned him down. Capitol turned him down. It was like, this music is over. I mean, everybody turned him down. And there was a guy called Tony Martell at Epic.
I heard the album and I signed him immediately. He is one of my, proudest moments in signing.
And it was like, all right, we'll give you 65 grand, which is a nothing deal, right? And it was like, okay, we'll take it. Anything, just release the record. So we signed to Epic, but nobody wanted to meet him. Nobody was excited.
Being a smart businesswoman, Sharon knew it was important to rally the troops at the record company. A lunchtime meeting was scheduled in May 1981.
We had to go into Epic to meet everyone. Everyone was in the conference room, and the publicity department, the promotion department, they were all there. So we said, all right, let's take some doves. And we'll release the doves, and everybody will say, oh, how nice, how sweet, and how lovely.
I drank a bottle of cognac, I think, and a load of other crap. And Sharon said to me, I want you to go in there and make an impression and throw these doves in the air. I said, yeah, I'll make an impression.
Probably about 25 of us in the room at the time. And went around and he introduced himself, and I actually put on Crazy Train on the stereo so that everybody could hear the track and just make sure everybody was familiar with it.
So he's got his pockets full of all these bloody birds, and he lets them go, and he sits on this girl's knee who's head of publicity. And she's like thinking, what the is he doing sitting on my knee? She really didn't want him there. And the bird landed on Ozzy's knee, and he picked it up and put it in his mouth and ripped its head off.
There was a little bit of blood dripping from his lip, and I was quite horrified by it.
And there's all these smiling people going. This carcass was flapping around the table, and feathers were flying in the air, and they were all like throwing up all over the place. It was quite interesting to see these office people with the ties and with all puke things in the front of them.
We were asked to leave the building. I'm like dying. I'd peed myself. I had peed myself because I was like, I couldn't believe that he'd done it.
And Sharon was going, you dummy! You'll never get a deal. Not a very honourable thing to oh my God, Ozzy Osbourne born so-and-so, so-and-so died, so-and-so, he bit the heads off this, and this.
Epic banned Ozzy from its building, but released his album. News and photos of the dove decapitation circulated, but as the saying goes, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Ozzy's celebrity status just immediately jumped up, because of it.
Blizzard of Oz went gold in 8 working days. Now, gold is still at a very important plateau in our business, but in those days, it was enormously important.
Blizzard of Oz went quadruple platinum, as did the follow-up album Diary of a Madman, also released in 1981. Ozzy was tearing it up on stage and off. His drinking was becoming legendary.
If you went to your job, dressed in an evening dress or something, with a Nazi hat and drunk as a skunk, they'd say, "What are you doing, man?" But if I turned, I'd go, "Well, it should be a good night tonight. Ozzy's up it tonight."
In January of 1982, Ozzy was on the road in Texas, and again drinking heavily and wearing a dress.
My wife started to hide my clothes to stop me going out. I'll be walking around the hotel room in no clothes, and I thought, "F this." And I put one of her dresses on and went to the bar.
Ozzy spent the night drinking, which led him to remember the Alamo in his own special way.
I was drunk, 7 o'clock in the morning, and decided to put one of my wife's green evening dresses on, and I would walk around town with a bottle of Courvoisier. And I wanted to take a leak, so I thought, oh, this will do, it's an old war. And lo and behold, it was the Alamo, and this great big Texan guy comes running around with 3 great big cups with the dark visor glasses on, and suddenly I'm being whisked away in this van with Sharon Champagne. You know.
Ozzy spent the day in jail and was barred from performing in San Antonio for an entire decade.
I mean, jail is not a very nice place to be anyway. I mean, I defy anybody to say that they like jail. Jail is not made to be liked, you know, especially in a green dress.
And if urinating on a national shrine wasn't enough, later that same month, Ozzy shocked the world again at a concert in Des Moines, Iowa.
He used to bite the head off bats in his act. They were rubber bats, you know, but someone evidently threw an unconscious bat on the stage, and he thought it was a rubber bat, whatever, and he picked it up and bit the head off.
And Sharon's going, "Dummy, it's real." I'm going, "What?"
Then he had to go off the road, he had to get rabies shots, and that was pretty funny.
As a result of his bat biting, Ozzy was banned in Boston. And in St. Louis, the FBI paid Ozzy a visit. They'd heard that his next goal was to urinate on the steps of the White House. Fueled by Ozzy's manic performances and Randy Rhoads' groundbreaking guitar work, the Blizzard of Oz stormed through one sold-out show after another in the winter of 1981. And no amount of bad press or controversy could derail them. However, a tragic accident did.
The plane had been flying treetop level roughly 3 times. He tipped the bus, then it went over the top of the bus, and after it hit the pine tree, it nosedived into the home.
I could not believe it. I thought I was in a Fellini nightmare. It was just a horrible, horrible day.
On March 19th, 1982, Randy Rhoads and 2 others were joyriding in a small prop-engine plane. They buzzed Ozzy's park tour bus 3 times without incident. But on the 4th flyby, the plane crashed into the bus. It careened into a nearby house and burst into flames.
The plane crashed into the bus that I was sleeping on, cut the bus in half, and just a big, bad, ugly scene. I don't really want to get into the graphics of it.
The pilot and his passengers, a dear friend of Sharon's named Rachel Youngblood, and Randy were killed instantly. The brilliant guitarist was just 25 years old. The sudden loss of his musical soulmate shattered Ozzy.
It'll never leave me, because when Randy Rhoads died, I don't know, I was in shock. We were all in shock, and my wife couldn't even play the record or mention his name for quite some time afterwards, you know.
We'd lost Randy, and we'd lost my best friend, Rachel. So it was very, very hard on us.
Ozzy considered quitting music forever. After just 2 magical years and 2 inspired albums together, Randy Rhoads was gone. Ozzy still can't believe it.
I haven't got over it yet. It seems like the period of time I spent with Randy Rhoads was 10 times longer than I was with Black Sabbath, and 10 times longer since I've been without him.
July 4th, 1982 was Independence Day for Ozzy and his bride, Sharon. She was pulling away from her controlling father, and he had divorced his wife.
Ozzy did the right thing and just walked out of the house and left everything for his wife. I had nothing because I worked for my father and everything I had was his, and I left my father. So that means I just left with a suitcase. And Ozzy left with a plastic bag from his wife, literally a bin bag.
Ozzy handled the stress of his wedding day in his trademark fashion.
My wedding cake had 7 bottles of Hennessy in the cake. Nobody would eat it. My wife's like romantic wedding night. Where was I? I passed out in the corridor outside the bridal suite of this hotel on Maui. And the guy knocked the door and said, "Is this your husband?" And I passed out on the floor.
Despite Ozzy's success, the couple was still broke. According to Sharon, Ozzy was still contractually bound to his former manager, who is now his father-in-law, Don Arden. Sharon says her dad was getting all the royalties. The little money the couple did have was spent on their legal battle to break Ozzy's contract with Arden.
For basically 3 years, we had no home, no car, no credit cards, because neither of us had any credit. And it was sort of like, we're nomads, we're bohemian, we'll just keep traveling and living on this bus, darling.
The new Mr. and Mrs. Osbourne took the band on the road for 3 long years. It was a tough life. Lead guitarist Randy Rhoads, Ozzy's close friend and musical soulmate, was gone. The rigors of the road were unrelenting. So was Ozzy's substance abuse. Soon he was going a little stir-crazy, and he expressed it all in song.
We had a baby, Amy, and then we had a crib on the back of the bus, and I couldn't see her now. In the morning, the bus would be troubling for like 20 hours on the road, and she'd be like banging, "Mommy," to wake us up.
In December '83, the Bark at the Moon album was released. Like every Ozzy album before or after it, Bark at the Moon became a huge hit, eventually going double platinum. In October of '84, Ozzy continued touring at a relentless pace. But in November, just days after daughter Kelly was born, Ozzy's addictions finally caught up with him.
What made you decide to go to the Betty Ford Clinic?
My health started to suffer. I was getting very bad backaches, and I was urinating blood for a while. I felt suicidal a couple of times. I felt just depressed, just down. The bottom line is, I reached a point where I couldn't get any satisfaction out of being a freak anymore, being a drunken, drug addict lunatic.
After more than 16 years of binging, Ozzy hit the wall. After 6 weeks of treatment, a clean, sober Ozzy emerged from the Betty Ford Center feeling better than he had in years.
I'm not going to say to everybody, don't drink, don't do that, don't do that. But, you know, all I do is say, be very careful, because it does grab me.
His victory would be fleeting. Ozzy would continue to battle his addictions.
I've made many statements about being sober. And what I can really say is, sobriety sucks.
After the birth of his son Jack in November of 1985, Ozzy was overcome with joy.
When I popped out, Daddy saw my willy and he fainted.
1 month later, he was drinking again.
I can't. Get me a drink, Jack.
You want?
Anything.
There's water behind you. Is that your water?
Water?
Despite his difficulties, Ozzy's career continued to soar. In 1986, he released the album Ultimate Sin. It eventually went double platinum. Ironically, the title Ultimate Sin was tragically prophetic. In November of that same year, Ozzy was in court once again. This time, however, he was accused of driving a young fan, John McCullum, to commit suicide. Representing the family of the boy, attorney Tom Anderson charged Ozzy was an evil demon who brainwashed his adoring fans.
I saw 16,000 kids. Not a smile on anybody's face. And when he was on the stage, they all got up and they went like this. Ozzy, Ozzy, Ozzy. Reminded me of Nuremberg. Ozzy, Ozzy. And that, of course, is a sign of the devil.
According to Anderson, Ozzy's song Suicide Solution had driven the troubled youth to put a .22 caliber handgun to his head and pull the trigger.
It's a felony for anyone to assist another in committing suicide. And I never saw a clearer case of an attempt to assist a young man in committing suicide. When you consider the lyrics on this record. The admitted lyrics distilled were the following: make your bed, rest your head, don't you know what it's all about? Suicide is the only way out. That's the admitted lyric.
It is not about suicide solution as pro-suicide. It is a warning about drinking yourself to death, because it's been common knowledge for the last God knows how many years. I was a major practicing alcoholic drug addict.
But Anderson went further, alleging that Ozzy had hidden subliminal messages in the recording, messages that instructed impressionable young listeners to take their own lives.
The additional lyrics and the additional sound was, get the gun, shoot, 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 shoot. Get the gun, shoot, 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 shoot.
I'm speechless. I mean, get the gun. To be perfectly honest with you, there is an effect on there. I was f***ing around in the studio and it was put to an echo thing, and I've listened to it myself, and you could misinterpret it as saying shoot. But that wasn't my intention. It wasn't. We didn't sit down and go, get the... I never said, get the gun.
I met with Ozzy, who was very upset about it. It was an interesting meeting because he was most upset about the fact that somebody would think he intended any harm by any of the lyrics in his songs.
The case was ultimately dismissed. Ozzy's attorney, Howard Weitzman, says that Anderson completely misunderstood the song.
There was no subliminal message, and it was clear after you listened to Ozzy and read the lyrics that wasn't the intent of his message.
Ozzy was sued 2 more times for the suicide deaths of 2 other teens. Neither case ever made it to trial. Despite the controversy, Ozzy never backed off from singing the song. He wrote about a friend who died from alcohol abuse.
Why should I stop singing a song which I know where I wrote it about, because somebody thinks I wrote it about something else?
It was the summer of 1989 at the Moscow Music Festival. On this stage, on this day, Ozzy was the undisputed king. Ironically, it was at this event dedicated to peace that the seeds were sown for Ozzy to commit his most violent act. As a thank you gesture, a concert promoter had given the Osbournes an array of exotic Russian vodkas.
They get back to the house in Buckinghamshire a couple weeks later, and it's a Saturday night, and Ozzy, bored, suddenly finds the vodka, and he's like, oh, yes, yes, fantastic.
I got crazy drunk. I drank about 4 bottles of vodka and God knows how many pills and whatever.
Until he got into such a state, according to Sharon, that he literally went beyond being drunk.
It got to the point where he just lost it totally.
He said, we've decided that you've got to go.
And, you know, started to strangle me, and I just lost it.
He was trying to kill her.
I pressed the panic button in the house, and the police came and they took him away, and he was arrested.
Next morning I woke up and I was in jail.
And he didn't remember a damn thing.
I said, is this some kind of joke?
I mean, he reached his bottom. There was no lower that he could get, and he knew it.
You've been arrested for attempting to murder your wife.
I mean, he'd done it big time.
She'd told him that the marriage was over.
I was thinking, my God, what's the matter with me? I'm like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It was horrendous.
Ozzy spent 3 months in court-enforced rehab away from his family.
I have fallen from grace, and my ashes are scattered.
This went beyond some rock star taking drugs, and he f***ed up his gig and they had to cancel the show. This was way beyond any of that. And Sharon seriously did contemplate just severing the relationship utterly.
Sharon took him back, but Ozzy's partying was far from over. In March 1991, he was in Las Vegas on a major cocaine binge. He had been up all night and just got sick and tired of being sick and tired.
I just thought, this, I can't do this anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And I got a big load of cocaine and threw it down the toilet, and I said, I'm out of here. I've never touched it since.
In addition to his newfound resolve, Ozzy was put on the mood-equalizing drug Prozac. He now takes his life one day at a time.
I'm not a saint by any means. I'm not going to tell you I'm home and dry, because I ain't, man. I mean, you know, sometimes I fall off, you know, but I get back up again and try again, you know.
Family man Ozzy still curses like a sailor, no matter how often daughter Kelly tries to keep him in line.
Well, I used to tell him to stop, but now there's no point. But the only time when I make him stop is when my friends come over.
Dad, don't, my friends come in, don't curse. Oh, what the f am I going to talk about then?
My bad.
Instead of snacking on the animals, the endearing Ozzy now plays with them.
Dad, that's sick. Can you give me, like, impetigo?
Hello.
Hello.
The rock legend headlines the annual Ozfest, which Sharon produces. The Hard Rock Show is the #2 grossing tour in America last year.
Black Sabbath back now.
And his career has come full circle as he is reunited with the original members of Black Sabbath. They were even collaborating on new music together.
Do you know what? It's like putting on an old pair of shoes. It fits.
From Black Sabbath to success as a solo artist, from notoriety to sobriety. For all of his changes, Ozzy Osbourne is still very much the boy from Birmingham who dreamed of rock and roll glory.